Labour's Deputy Leader Angela Rayner is with us on the programme this morning.
Good morning.
Lots to talk about, Ms Rayner. Thanks for joining us. Good morning to you. What would you say, first of all, to the Director General of the BBC this morning?
Well, first of all, they need to be very transparent about their policies, procedures and what they're doing and how they're, working, how they would conduct themselves so people have that confidence that they're dealing with their complaints and people understand their complaints process. I think people need to understand, of course, they can't give details of individual complaints, but the overarching, how do we deal with complaints, I think needs to be explained so that people have that confidence, because every employer has those procedures, but people have to have confidence that they're working correctly and that they're being followed.
Have you lost confidence in them, given what we've learned so far?
I mean, I haven't got the detail to see what's happened. Of course, the police have investigated and said there was no criminality there, and it's a different bar. But the BBC have said that they're carrying out their investigations and that they need to be able to do that. But I would say being transparent about how your processes work, so people understand that there is a process and how that operates, I think would help in terms of giving people confidence that they are robust in the way they deal with these complaints.
Stuart Purvis, who used to be in charge at ITN, was sat where you were in the last hour, and he said a worried mother, went into the BBC to say, I need help, and she left without receiving it. And he thinks there are questions to answer there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the circumstances of how that was approached, but it's pretty clear from what's been said in the news that you've got parents and a child that are at odds with each other, which is incredibly tragic. And you've also now got a presenter who is very, very unwell and in hospital, and we do not know the circumstances around what's happened. And I think that process needs to continue, and it has to be done in the correct manner.
What would you say to the editor of The Sun this morning?
I think, they have responsibilities. Of course, it's important that the media are able to carry out their job and to hold people to account. But what comes with that is responsibility as well. And I think, they have responsibilities to ensure that they're working in an ethical way, to ensure that they're protecting, they're doing their job in terms of, bringing stories forward, but also that they're acting in an ethical way. And we have standards that they have to adhere to.
Do you think they have?
I don't think that I don't know at the moment. We need to understand the full details of how that came about and what's been said. I mean, it's still an ongoing process and more details are coming out every day at the moment. And I think, there is a concern here about privacy as well and protecting people in that process. And playing it out in the media is not necessarily the best way of doing that.
But do you not think it's a matter of public interest if, as transpires, that, a national treasure, a 61-year-old man, goes onto a website, a dating app, and gets pictures of a boy in his teens?
Well, I think, again, those complaints and the way in which that's dealt with.
Those are the facts. I mean, were the Sun right to publicise that?
I don't know what the facts are, if they're around that, whether or not, if two consenting adults have decided to conduct themselves in a consenting way, then is that in the public interest then to put that out? I don't know the full details. There's been allegations against somebody being vulnerable, etc., and I don't know the full circumstances to that.
What would it happen if it was an MP?
Well, it would clearly end up in the media if it was an MP.
But should it?
I think, some things, it's a question of, is it two consenting adults and is that in the public interest to put that out? Is it a power imbalance? I don't know the circumstances to the relationship. We've heard from the young person who has put out a statement through their lawyers, which is different to what the parents are saying. And, you've also got a presenter here who hasn't made a comment because he's very unwell and he's receiving medical treatment. So I don't know the full circumstances.
Where do your sympathies lie?
With everyone involved, the family. You've got parents who are clearly concerned and at odds with their child. You've got a young person who is clearly in a different place and trying to put their case forward. And you've got a presenter who has not done anything criminally wrong, who has been, hounded at the moment to the point where they're in hospital, they're really unwell. So I think that, these processes that the BBC follow, and the police who have conducted their investigation as well, is correct, and that needs to happen. And I think that's important, that there is privacy for people around that as well.
Would you like to see Hugh Edwards on screen again?
I want to see him well. I want to see him well, and I want to see him have the opportunity to represent himself in a formal process where there is confidence that he will get the opportunity to put his case forward, and everybody has that right to be able to do that. And at the moment, clearly, he's not in a position to do that.
That's certainly the case. That's certainly the case. Our latest Westminster Accounts story, I don't know if you've seen the latest one that Sam
I've
has
seen
done.
a bit, yes.
Yeah. I just wondered what your thoughts were on that and how money is being used.
Well, I think, again, the public are going to be exasperated with this because it frustrates them that they're seeing, as they see it, wrongdoing, and there is clearly a case for him to answer. You know, he's the former chairman of the Conservative Party, Jake Berry, and every time these allegations come forward, and it just undermines people's trust and confidence in elected politicians, which, again, is why I'm pushing my independent Ethics and Integrity Commission, because something has to be done so that people realise that, you know, wrongdoing happens, of course it does, but that they have confidence there's a process that A, tries to stop it and prevent it, but also that people are held to account when it does happen. And at the moment, people don't have that. And we're having this trickle effect of constant sleaze and scandal, and it undermines trust and confidence in our politicians. A majority of politicians, regardless of political party, I believe go in there for all of the right reasons. And we've just got to make sure that those bad apples are dealt with, and dealt with swiftly.
Peer review body likely to say recommending 6.5% for teachers, NHS workers, other public sector workers. Would Labour agree to that?
Well, we'd have to look at that. We're not in government at the moment. We've got our
so you wouldn't
fiscal
necessarily
rules.
just accept it?
We're not in government, so we don't know what what those negotiations are going to look like in the future. But the government are not getting around the table and are not negotiating. We've got the strike action in the NHS, and this has been going on for a long time.
So
and it's costing,
just to be clear, you wouldn't necessarily
more money.
accept it. You wouldn't necessarily accept the independent peer review body's findings.
We'd have to look at it. That's what we'd do.
What's the point of having otherwise?
Well, we'd look at it and then we'd start the negotiations, and we would do that in good faith, and I think that's the right way to approach it. The alternative at the moment is that we haven't had a government that is negotiating. We've had industrial action that perversely is costing more money as well as creating more problems for patients who can't get the care that they want.
OK. I just wanted to ask you about a row that has been bubbling, and you'll have a view on this, with Carol Vorderman and the Mercers.
Okay.
And they're arguing on Twitter about nonsense. But then Carol Vorderman did tweet this. She said, not a degree in sight in spite of expensive private education, so who'd employ them? I mean, do you need a degree to be successful in politics?
No, you don't need a degree to be successful in politics, because I haven't got one.
That's why
so, yeah, of course. But, you know, I don't think you need a degree to be successful in politics. But I think Carol's right to argue that if you've been to, you know, you've been privately educated and you've not been able to get a degree, I mean, why waste your money on private education? I mean, I personally think that the state sector is a fantastic sector. They did a great job with me. I had a lot of challenges because I grew up in poverty and wasn't school ready, so it wasn't my teacher's fault that I left without any qualifications. But look how resilient I am. You know, they taught me some great life skills, and I think, you know, the state sector do a fantastic job. So don't waste your money on private schooling. You could do just as good in our state sector, and we should celebrate that.
So Carol's right to tweet what she did?
Well, Carol's entitled to her opinion. I think that we all need to be a bit kinder on Twitter, is what I would say.
Do you agree with her?
I think that, you know, she's made a point against what the Mercers are doing, and that's between Carol and the Mercers. I'm not getting involved in that spat. I have enough problems on my own social media feed.
It's good to see you. Thank you. It's much appreciated.